Every autumn, we look forward to the return of birds, ducks like the bufflehead, geese, swans, and other waterfowl that leave their breeding grounds in the far north and come to winter in our area. And this evening, we have Ed Dominguez with us to broaden our understanding of this fall migration of Arctic birds. Some of us got to meet Ed last spring at the Venus Bird Festival, and he did a fantastic presentation. It was entertaining and informational on nighthawks, owls, and bats. And I thought, we got to bring him over to Whidbey, Audubon, and have him do a presentation. And here he is. Ed has been an educator and outdoor leader for over 30 years. He has served as the lead naturalist at the Seward Park Audubon Center in Seattle since 2011. He's worked as a naturalist for North Cascades Institute and been a mountaineering leader for the Seattle Mountaineers. A native of Mount Shasta, California, Ed obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees from California State University, and then he moved to Seattle to work on his PhD at the University of Washington. He's knowledgeable about geology, trees, mushrooms, wildflowers, mammals, and he particularly enjoys birds and bird songs. He's passionate about sharing the wonder of nature with others, and he's an experienced teacher of all ages. So please welcome Ed Dominguez.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for that wonderful introduction. I don't need to be behind the dais. Come down and be amongst you. Well, I am so happy to be here this evening with you, and what a great turnout. Wow, how rewarding. Thank you very much. And a special thanks to Kathy and Jim for contacting me and saying, would you like to come out and speak with us and tell us about birds? And I said, sure. And a big thanks to Joaquin and Tom in the back there. There's always technical thises and that's that have to get figured out, and they were very important in helping getting things going tonight. Unfortunately, some of my videos have sound, and we weren't able to get the sound to, instead of using an HDMI hookup, we're doing Zoom, so I'll try to do the narration. One of them was by David Attenborough, and I can't begin to replicate his expertise, but I'll try my best. So thank you very much, Whidbey Audubon, for hosting me. Seward Park Audubon is an environmental learning center, so it's not a chapter like Whidbey Audubon. Some of you are probably familiar with the Audubon Washington, Terry Anderson, who is our chapters director and coordinates all the chapters in Washington State. But I'm very happy to be up here and talking to you about some of my favorite things, birds. Now, as Kathy alluded to, we have a big influx of birds, but as you're probably aware, we have a big outflow of birds right now. We're coming to the end of fall migration, and this, up until this point, as of last night, at least King County, I don't know if any of you follow the website Birdcast. We have 38,445,000 birds migrating north to south over, I live in King County in Seattle, over King County starting August 1st, and then the end of the Birdcast fall migration period is just in a couple of days, August 15th. So we've had nearly 39 million. Last night we had about 3,400, I believe, that came. So we're kind of dwindling down now, but almost 39 million. That's a lot of birds. Although, for perspective, that's much lower than the average mean of what we've had birds migrating through. So it gives us a sign that, we're seeing fewer birds. But as those birds are heading south to Mexico, Central America, South America, journeys of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 miles, they're being replaced by two big groups of influxes of birds. One are birds that migrate not in terms of latitude north to south, but migrate elevationally. They spend the summer in the Olympics and the Cascades up in the high country where they breed, but now as snow is starting to fall, hopefully more snow for people like me that like to ski, there's fewer insects for them to eat, and so they migrate down to the lowlands, like here on Whidbey Island, the Puget Sound Basin, and they spend the winter with us down low. Birds like ruby-crowned kinglets, golden-crowned kinglets, Townsend solitaires, hermit thrushes, varied thrushes, all these songbirds are now coming into our area as the tropical migrants head south. And the third group of migratory birds is the one we're going to focus on tonight. I collectively call them Arctic visitors because they're birds that breed in the far north. And by the far north, I mean Alaska, the Yukon Territory, the Northwest Territories, northern British Columbia, and northern Alberta, where there's lots of insects up there, lots of food, so they breed up there, lots of food for their youngsters. But now as the cold weather and the snows hit, food populations insect-wise drop, and they head to where the eating is better. They come south. So they overwinter with us on our waters, usually starting to come in the week before Halloween, and they will be with us until mid-April, in some cases even late April. And so we get to enjoy them on all of our waterways, freshwater lakes, as well as the saltwater of Puget Sound and all the embayments that it encompasses. So that's our focus for tonight, are these Arctic visitors. And let's get started. Make sure we can get my screen seems to have disappeared, so let's see if we can. Okay. All right, well, now we're ready. So, Arctic visitors, and it says winter water birds of Lake Washington because Seward Park Audubon Center is on the peninsula, formerly the island of Seward Park in Lake Washington, and this is usually, I give these presentations for people down in the Lake Washington area, but it equally applies to up here on Whidbey Island and all the waterways that we have here. And you can see a beautiful bufflehead that's taken off from the water there with the light hitting and showing the beautiful refracted colors in its head and on its wings. There's a delay there, so that's going to throw me. I'll try to get used to that. Just a quick acknowledgement of the peoples that have inhabited this land for the last 11,000 years, and the native peoples who are, in my opinion, the best conservationists, stewards of the land, and caretakers of all the wild creatures that are in it. They did a far better job than we have seemed to be doing, although I think our consciousness is coming around a little bit in recent decades, so we owe a great debt of gratitude to them. They knew how to live in harmony with habitat and all the creatures therein. So a tribute to all of the Coast Salish peoples that are the original human inhabitants of our area. All right, in terms of our Arctic visitors, I'd like to talk about three different groups of birds. You're probably familiar with these. We have ducks, and we have grebes, and we have coots. Similar, but with a difference. All right, what makes a duck a duck? There's one anatomical feature that sets ducks apart from other birds, and of course, that's webbed feet. They have a skin between their front three toes. It's called a patagium, and it's used for propulsion. When the duck spreads its toes and pushes its leg back, the patagium provides resistance perpendicular to the direction of travel of the duck, and the duck moves forward. On the recovery stroke, the duck closes its toes, so it's not fighting its own forward motion, less resistance, and that's how they navigate. And they're quite good at it, both on the surface of the water and many times underneath the water as well. So that's what makes a duck, and when we're talking about ducks, we can divide them into two big categories, and many of you are probably good birders and you know this already, but if you're fairly new to birding, you see all these ducks out on the sound or out on a lake, and oh, there's so many, how can I even begin to figure out what this is? Well, you can divide them into two big categories based on their feeding behavior. So we have dabbling ducks and we have diving ducks. Dabbling ducks tend to feed in shallower water, and they feed by putting their head down under and mucking around for food. We'll talk a little more in detail. It's much more sophisticated than that. Diving ducks, they're in deeper water. Now you see them, now you don't. Typically, just as you're getting your binoculars ready to take a look and focus on them, where did it go? They dive down. So based on their feeding behavior, you can quickly hone in on one group of ducks and discount all the others. Of the dabbling ducks tonight, we're going to talk about the gadwall, its cousin, the mallard, the American and Eurasian widgeons, and the northern shoveler. Now, there are more dabbling ducks than that, such as this beautiful cinnamon teal that you folks have here at Whidbey Audubon. Look at that beautiful green speculum. But, you know, we could be here till 11 o'clock tonight talking about every single duck. So in a question and answer, I can answer some questions about those. But these are some main ones that we'll look at. And then the diving ducks, the bufflehead, barrows and common golden eyes, common merganser, hooded merganser, and the red-breasted merganser, and the ringneck duck. So let's get down and get a little more up close and personal with who we have here. So, two birds that are cousins, the mallard and the gadwall. The mallard is in the genus Anis, Anis platyrhynchos, which translates to broad nose because the bill is broad and shovel-like, which is very effective for dabbling feeding. You know, in the bird world as well as the plant, and boy, when you get into mushrooms, with DNA sequencing and new advances in science, they're renaming everything. The gadwall used to be Anis strepera, so they were both in the genus Anis. Well, now they've put the gadwall in a new category. DNA sequencing shows, well, it's not quite as close a cousin to the mallard as we thought, so now it's in Macrana strepera. So you have to learn everything. Like Oregon grape, we all learned it's in Mahonia. In fact, as a kid, you know, I was learning, we are marching to Mahonia. Guess what? DNA sequencing, well, it's actually in the barberry family. So now instead of Mahonia, it's Berberis. I still say Mahonia. Anyway, it's great because new science, we're learning more and getting more precise in what we learn, not just designating things, but how they work. But it does make it a challenge when you're trying to learn and then relearn things. Anyway, the mallard and the gadwall, very similar. So you can see there with our mallard, the males are very classic with a beautiful green head. They typically have a white neck collar, a beautiful mahogany breast, gray flanks, a dark tail, and a bright yellow bill on the males. We'll talk more about how you can discriminate the female gadwall and the female mallard. The male gadwall on the right, I like, my nickname for the gadwall is the well-dressed duck because it looks like the male's wearing a beautiful tweed sports jacket that's kind of brown with some gray in it. And, you know, I usually joke like it's like old money, you know, the gadwall. Yes, I'm heading down to the Rainier Club in Seattle to have sip brandy and smoke cigars with the boys and I gave a presentation at the Rainier Club once, and it was, I mean, this dark wainscoting on the walls, and it's just like, whoa, this is, yeah. So the gadwall's kind of like old money, the well-dressed duck with a beautiful black tail, a white speculum on its wing patch, a dark bill, not a yellow bill, and kind of a brown head. The breast is very speckled, light-colored with dark specks on it, so a very, very handsome duck. So let's take a closer look here at some mallards feeding, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about dabbling and what's up with dabbling. So here we have a male and female mallard on an icy pond in winter feeding. Looks like there's a little pixelation going on there, but that's okay. So dabbling might look like it's a very crude behavior at first, like are these ducks just sticking their bill in the water or the mud on the bottom, getting a mouthful of swallowing and hoping for the best? It's much more sophisticated than that. In fact, one of my axioms for the natural world is that everything is smarter than we think it is. Dabbling is much more sophisticated than it might appear at first glance because inside the bills of these ducks and all over the tongue, the roof of the mouth, the floor of their mouth, the back of the throat, by the gular pouch, are two specialized sets of cells called corpuscles. You're familiar with those. These two sets are named after European scientists that, quote unquote, discovered them, and they're called Herbst, H-E-R-B-S-T corpuscles, and Grandry corpuscles. Let me explain how they work and how they make feeding much more sophisticated for dabblers. Herbst corpuscles are touch sensitive. In fact, they're far more touch sensitive than the finger touch receptors on our fingers and our thumbs. And as these ducks strain in water and material in the water over those corpuscles, they can tell by touch whether the material is organic, so they can use their tongue to push that up against the roof of their mouth, spit out what they don't want, swallow what they want. The granary, the other corpuscles, are movement sensitive. So if they get an invertebrate, be it a worm or a insect larva or a fish, and it's moving, they know to do the same thing. Hold it in their mouth, tongue against the roof of their mouth, spit out what they don't want, swallow what's nutritious for them. And they spit out mud, rocks, grit, whatever. Pond scum if they're skimming the surface. So they're very selective about what they eat. So when you see a dabbler, it's not just getting a mouthful of gunk and I hope there's something good in here, but they're actually straining out and very selective about what they swallow. Now, mallards are very omnivorous. They will eat fish, they eat water plants, they eat both freshwater and saltwater mollusks, like clams, freshwater mollusks. They eat, so I've seen them eat crayfish, crustaceans. They even come up on land in the fall and stuff their crops with acorns. In fact, I've seen mallards coming out, waddling back to the lake at Seward Park with so many acorns, it's just a big knot in their throat. And I see that and go, it reminds me when I was a little kid, there used to be this Alka-Seltzer commercial where this husband and wife are getting ready for bed, and the husband goes, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. You ate it, Harold. I can't believe. Take some Alka-Seltzer. Anyway, it's the indigestion that those ducks must have. So they're very opportunistic and omnivorous, and they eat all kinds of foods, but very selective. Now, as we continue to watch, the female mallard, and in ducks, the females are the primary gender that incubate the eggs and take care of raising the young. In different species of ducks, the males can play a role. Sometimes the males are just deadbeat dads, and once they do the wild thing with the female, they're just off doing whatever they want. But many times they will help protect the nest area. But the female's primarily responsible, so her coloration is always camouflaged. That's with that dappled kind of brown and black and tan, so they blend in with the shoreline vegetation that they build their nests out of. Now, female gadwalls and female mallards look very similar. In fact, it's tough to tell the difference, but take a look at the female mallard's bill. It's a combination of orange and brown, but it's very irregular. I mean, sometimes it's a lot of orange with a few brown blotches. Sometimes, like in the case of this one, it's almost all brown with barely any orange. When you see the gadwall female, you'll notice it's very demarcated. There's orange on the sides of the bill, the gape, but down the center, it's like someone took a nice paintbrush and did a nice brown stripe right down the center. They colored within the lines. The mallard goes outside the lines. And we'll see that with the gadwalls coming up. So, the American mallard, one of our most common ducks, one of our most resplendent, and great at dabbling. All right, let's take a look next at our gadwall. So there's the female gadwall. When she turns and faces you, again, we're getting a little pixelation, sorry about that. There's the well-dressed male. But there's the female, and yeah, we're getting a lot of pixelate. But see the bill there? You've got a nice brown stripe right down the center. She'll turn around again, don't worry. With orange on the sides and a nice line, and then a nice smooth patch of brown right down the center of the bill. The male gadwall, the bill is not yellow at all. It's very dark, almost black, and you can see that beautiful speckled breast. And they're doing a classic dabbling behavior. You see how they're using their feet to kick up and stir up silt off the bottom of the pond that is full of invertebrates and an insect larva. And so they stir it up, put their head down, and do their feeding. These dabblers will feed off the surface of water, because there's water insects like water striders. In the spring, a lot of pollen falls down on the surface, and that's nutritious for the birds. Sometimes they feed mid-water column, and then sometimes they're feeding off the bottom. Wherever the food is, if there's something good to eat, that's what they go for. Now on the female there, you see that little white patch? Where we have with your wonderful cinnamon teal here, this beautiful green patch. In duck anatomy, that's called a speculum. And a speculum is a colored patch of secondary wing feathers that has a couple of very specific purposes. Number one, it's a danger signal. If a group of birds are dabbling and feeding, and let's say a bald eagle comes flying down looking for duck for a meal, the ducks will fly off, and if one's busy feeding or head's under the water, when it pops up, when it sees that flash of color, it's a danger alert, like, hey, you better pay attention and maybe skedaddle with the rest of the gang, or you might wind up on the dinner plate. You know, kind of like in songbirds, dark-eyed juncos, have outer white tail feathers that they flash constantly. The speculum is used for that. Even more importantly, though, it's used as a navigational aid. Because as you know, ducks and geese fly in a chevron formation, right? A letter V, much like a bicycle peloton. The bird in the lead is doing all the work, braking the air. The other birds draft behind it in the wake so they don't have to fight that breaking the wind. They can ride in the slipstream. And then they rotate positions so the lead duck can go in the back and rest a bit, and they take turns rotating. Well, many times birds migrate at night, or if they're in stormy conditions, or if it's fog. Those speculum patches allow the birds to see one another. They're not like fighter jets from up here at Oak Harbor, right, where you radio one another for your position. They have to look and see, and those colored patches, the speculums, help them see and maintain a very flight-efficient formation. And that color varies between bird to bird. So here it's beautiful green with blue on the cinnamon teal. With mallards, the speculum is violet with a leading white edge that's a little bit thick and a thinner edge that's thinner. Gadwalls, the speculum is completely white, and many times the speculum is green in birds, such as the common merganser. So when they stretch that wing out, it is beautiful, but it has a purpose. Remember, everything's smarter than we think it is. And another axiom I like to use in the natural world is that in nature, there's a reason for everything. So why have a colored patch on your wing? Now you guys know. So the gadwall and the mallard, cousins. Oh, before I leave, I want to mention the gadwall. Sometimes it's also known as the pirate duck. Why is that? Well, you can see classic gadwall dabbling, feeding behavior in shallow water, but they'll go out into deeper water when other water birds are out there. Coots, widgeons, diving ducks, and they kind of hang around with them, and as soon as one of those other birds comes up with some water plants, boom, the gadwall puts its bill in there and will yank the water plant out of the other bird's bill and pirate it, so to speak. So many times gadwalls are called the pirate duck. And truth be told, it's not just gadwalls. In the bird world, as you may know, it always seems better. If you can steal somebody else's hard-earned meal, it's a lot less work than getting one yourself. So they try to, steal other people's. But gadwalls make a real habit of that, hanging out with birds in deeper water, waiting for one of them to come up with some water plants. Unlike the mallards, which are omnivorous, gadwalls most of the year are vegetarian. Now, when it's nesting season in the spring, the female in particular will eat a lot more carnivorously. Worms, isopods, anything that's an invertebrate in the water, fish, for more strength for the eggshells. But this time of year, they're plant eaters almost exclusively. Okay. So now, the widgeons. You're probably familiar with widgeons, and we have two of them. We have the American widgeon up on top, and we have the Eurasian widgeon. And they're easy to tell apart. Their size and shape, they're mallard size and shaped, but the American widgeon has this beautiful emerald green swoosh that goes around its eye and a big white stripe right down the center of its head. The flanks are kind of a peachy color, or kind of a pretty pink, with a dark tail that has a white patch right in front of it. My laser pointer doesn't work on the screen too well, but you can see a white patch and then the nice dark tail. The Eurasian widgeon has a head that's kind of nutmeg colored. And instead of having a big white stripe down the center of the head, it's got kind of a tan, buffy stripe down the center of the head. But other than that, the body size is the same. The shape is just about the same. And of course, we have a lot more American widgeons than typically we do Eurasian, but you'll see some Eurasian widgeons that are around as well. So let's take a closer look at some of these folks here. So here's an American widgeon. It's got a beautiful sky blue or baby blue bill with a black, it's called the nail at the tip that's pointed, and look at that green. The pink flanks, you can see the white patch just in front of the tail, and then the dark tail. The female is a little more broadly camouflaged. The scalloping on her back is a little broader than the mallard and the gadwall that we saw, but she has the pink flanks as well. And I don't know if you've heard these birds, but whoever invented the yellow rubber ducky bathtub toy had to have had this bird in mind, because they make that squeak, 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 squeak. That just sounds identical to a bathtub toy, a kid's toy in the tub. So the American widgeons. Now, American widgeons are dabblers, but they tend to be out in a little deeper water. They can dive down a little bit deeper to get water plants that are submerged deeper than gadwalls or mallards. So sometimes you'll see them out in deeper water going to pull up the plants, and there's usually a gadwall or two hanging nearby to try and rob them of their hard-won meal. Now, while we're taking a look and enjoying that beautiful emerald green head, anytime you see a bird, one of these ducks that has green, like the common merganser, or the mallard that we just saw, or the American widgeon, you're not really looking at a color of pigmentation. You're seeing refracted light. Now, the feather barbules at the microscopic level, the way they're arranged, they bend and refract light. And additionally, there are microscopic droplets of oil and water in between the laminates of the feathers that tend to bend and refract the mid-range frequencies of visible light. You guys probably all remember your visible light spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, as you get shorter wavelengths, blue, indigo, violet. These ducks tend to reflect the middle, the green. So when you see the head in bright sunlight, it looks beautiful green. But if it's, like today, really gloomy and overcast out there, it almost looks black, because it's not a color of pigmentation, it's refracted light. Even here, my common merganser, you know, if you see it in the dark, well, is his head black? But if you can get it kind of where the light is shining on it, and you can see it would come up later and take a look, then your eyes are at the right angle to get the refracted or bent light, and it shows off the green. So a little tidbit there about what kind of color are you looking at and why sometimes they look very dark. Well, that's why. Now, talk about green. This guy is amazing. And we have here the northern shoveler. And talk about a green head. And remember that speculum, that colored wing part? Look at that emerald green it is. And they have green on the tail. They've got blue on the upper wings and on the flanks, yellow eyes. And wow, you thought the mallard had a great dabbling bill. This guy puts the mallard to shame. The mallard's got to have bill envy of this guy, because look at that broad shovel-like bill, hence the name northern shoveler. So these guys are super adapted to make a living dabbling. And here you can see a group of males, and then, of course, the camouflaged females. And if you're a predator, say you're that eagle that's up in a tree thinking, boy, I'd sure like to have a nice meal of duck. Now, when you get a group like this and they start spinning around, it makes it real challenging as the predator to, well, who do I go for here? It's kind of analogous to zebras in Africa. You know, if a hyena comes out or a lion, they start running on all those black and white stripes. It's like, who do I try to target here? It's kind of dizzying and disorienting. Same way with ducks. They spin around in all those colors, you know. The strategy or the instinct is that, you know, the eagle might get somebody, but as long as it's not me, if I'm in the crowd, I'm okay. So the northern shoveler, you'll see them all around freshwater ponds everywhere here in the Northwest. We got a little delay. Here it comes. Golden eyes. In the genus Bucephalus, which is also the bufflehead's genus Bucephalus. And we have two kinds we have here in the Northwest. We've got the common goldeneye, males on top, females on the bottom. And then we have the Barrow's goldeneye, named after George Barrow, the explorer that went up exploring the Bering Straits in Alaska. So take a look at the two. They're similar in size. They're a little longer-bodied duck in some cases than the mallards and the gadwalls, even a little bit long, not as quite, they're about the size of a shoveler. But take a look at some of the differences. The first and most obvious facial marking indicators, the common goldeneye has a round cheek patch, pretty round. The Barrow's goldeneye, it's shaped like a crescent or a sickle. So that's the first thing to look at. A couple of other differences. The Barrow's goldeneye forehead is a little steeper. It's almost vertical. The common goldeneye is a more gentle, like about a 25-degree slope. The female common goldeneye has kind of a light dirt brown, earthy brown, soil brown head. The bill is mostly dark, although sometimes they'll have a little orange at the tip. This photo doesn't show too well. Whereas the Barrow's goldeneye, the head is more of a dark chocolatey brown rather than a soil brown, and more of the bill is orange than it is black. For the males, the common goldeneye, both of them are black right on the top of the back, but look at the wings here of the common. It's mostly white with thin little black lines curving towards the tail, whereas the Barrow's goldeneye, it's mostly black, and you have large white chunks that are the markings on the wings. So from a distance, if you get a good look at the flank, you can see that, oh, thin little black stripes, mostly white, probably a common. Mostly black with white blocky spots, probably a Barrow's. But of course, that facial field marking is the big indicator. Now, these are in the genus Bucephalus, as is our bufflehead that we're going to see momentarily. And Bucephalus comes from the Greek name for Alexander the Great's horse. And it literally means, you know, head of an ox. So big-headed. Now, the goldeneyes may not look like they have a big head, but in the video you're about to see, they can pilo-erect these feathers so they stick out and look, you know, big and studly when they're courting females. And so in the next video, we'll let it loop a couple times. Look at how much the goldeneye's head expands those feathers as he erects them. And also in the video, you're going to get lots of looks at the Eurasian widgeon. This video I selected is really good because the goldeneyes are moving in amongst a group of Eurasian widgeons. So let's check them out. So there's our goldeneye. There's our widgeons with that nutmeg kind of head and the tan stripe down the center. I'm sorry for the pixelation. It's kind of herky-jerky there, but yeah, look at that widgeon shooting by there. And there's the female goldeneye right behind. They're cruising along. Again, I'm sorry for the jerkiness of it. It's just something with probably with the zoom, but now look at how it can expand those feathers on its head, and the head suddenly looks very blocky. There's more Eurasian widgeons. And of course, that bright golden eye, that's how they get their name. Not the James Bond movie Goldeneye, but bright yellow eye. And they'll cock their heads up like that or bend them back. And when they cock their head back, they sing their love song to the female. Ah, ah. It must be beautiful music to the females. It sounds pretty raucous to us, not very musical. Now, all of these ducks have been pair bonding all through the fall. So when you see them, you'll see a lot of social hierarchical behaviors, the males trying to keep other males away from the females, kind of letting them know, mind your manners, know your place in the social ladder here. Keep to your position. And there's a lot of courtship and a lot of duck sex going on right now. The females are not fertile right now, so we're not going to have any baby ducks in the winter. But I guess you could just say maybe the males are practicing. So you'll see when you're watching ducks, you'll see lots of courtship and copulation behaviors, but no eggs will be laid until the spring. So the common goldeneye, there's the male in the lead, the female with that kind of earthy, dirty brown head, and then amongst a bunch of Eurasian widgeons. All right. All right, mergansers. Mergansers are fish-eating ducks, and this is a common merganser. It's Mergus, genus Mergus merganser, which literally translates to the plunging diving goose, or the diving goose. So it's kind of redundantly named the plunging diving goose, because these are, again, dabbling ducks, not as is the goldeneye. They're divers as well, so out in deeper water. And like the mount I have here, or the slide up there, you can see that this is a long-bodied duck, much longer than any of the ducks we've seen so far. So they've got an elongated body, a heavier, bigger body, dark emerald green head, which now you guys know that's refracted light you're seeing, a bright orange bill, and then kind of brown on the tail. The female common merganser has a very cinnamony colored head with a lot of feathers that stick out back, like she's got a little attitude going with her hairstyle. She's, kind of punk looking. And then she has a very prominent white patch on the underside of her jaw, right behind the bill. Now these bills are very specialized. These are not dabbling bills at all. Now, probably hard to see in the back, but this bird actually has serrated edges. All of these bills are made of keratin, the same protein substance that our hair and fingernails are made of, but this has serrated edges because this narrow bill is great for catching fish, and that's what these birds eat. They're not vegetarian, or they like fish. Now, in the bird world, it's all about weight to lift ratio. You want to be as light as you can be so that you can get as much lift as possible with the least amount of energy. So most birds have hollow bones rather than solid bones like we mammals do. They're actually kind of chambered bones, but they're not solid, so they're lighter weight. Birds don't have urinary bladders because that's just a bag full of liquid. Dead weight. So the ureters from the kidneys come right out and go into the intestine and come out the cloaca, the multi-purpose organ for, excrement and egg laying, and for, semen to go up inside the female. So that's why bird poop is so runny. And it's high in nitrogen, that's why it's white. But the third thing related to mergansers is tooth enamel is a very heavy substance. So no birds have teeth. It's just too heavy for that weight to lift ratio. So mergansers have evolved edges to their bills. They're called lamellae is the term. And there's a sharp nail, that point that many of these ducks have on the tip, so they can pinch and hold on to fish and then grip them with the lamellae. And then once they catch a fish, all these ducks, you'll see they will try to orient it so it goes down head first, because on many fish, the dorsal fin has a spine on it, and if you go tail first, that dorsal spine might go right up through your palate, the roof of the mouth, not so good for the ducks. So they try and orient it head first so the dorsal fin will lie flat as down the hatch, and you don't get poked. So common mergansers, let's take a little closer look. And you'll see these mergansers are displaying what we call maintenance behavior or preening. These birds have an oil gland at the upper base of their tail, and many of them have it in their their armpit, you might say, and they stimulate that preen oil gland. I think the technical name is a uvulaceous gland. They stimulate that prenoidal gland. Oil comes out. They smear it on their bills, and then they use their bill to comb it in on the feathers to align all the barbules of the feathers and provide kind of like car wax on a car to help keep them water repellent. So ducks, all birds actually, spend a lot of time grooming their feathers because the feathers are what keep the skin intact, safe from injury, and keep them temperature regulated because birds can get hypothermia just like any other organism. So keeping their feathers and plumage in tip-top shape is very important for their survival. Oh, and this one's got an itch. And then he's going to stretch in a minute. Oh, there he goes. Oh, stretch. Now, I don't know if in the back of the room if you can see, but the white on this bird, the males, when we have ducks where they sit in the body of water, it's white. We call it white at the water line. And we've seen the golden eyes are white, both the barrows and the common golden eye. When we see the bufflehead, it's white. The merganser's white, but when you see him out on a body of water, it looks kind of dingy, kind of like those old commercials. Are your whites dingy? You need to use whatever, Tide or Cheer or whatever, the laundry detergent. Well, the white on the common goldeneye is a dingy-looking white because in between those white feathers are small yellow feathers that are in there, and they make the white kind of have a dirty or a dingy look. When you see a goldeneye or a bufflehead, the white at the waterline, it is like pristine snow white. But the common merganser, it kind of has a dirty, smudgy look to it. So just another field marking, if you're looking at a difference, there's a duck that's white at the waterline. What did Ed say that? Well, it's kind of a big duck. Buffleheads are tiny. Golden eyes, medium-sized, and it looks kind of dingy. In all likelihood, you're looking at a common merganser. And of course, the females are showing, they got that hairdo with a little attitude in the back there. I got to see the stretch again. I love it. Again, sorry for the pixelation. Normally these flow really smooth, but what can we do? We'll make the best we can with it. Okay. Now, we have three mergansers around here. We have the red-breasted merganser, which in our area, they tend to like salt water. So if you're looking for red-breasted mergansers, look out in the salt water around Whidbey Island. You can see the male. It's a little smaller merganser than the common merganser, not as chunky of a body, and not white at the waterline. It's kind of gray with black where the wings attach to the body. In breeding plumage, it's got that orangey red, which gives it its name, upper breast and lower throat, a bright white throat, and then the same green head with the orange bill, same lamellae, those serrations, as the common merganser. But instead of having a nice smooth head like the common merganser, it's got the same hairdo with an attitude that the female common mergansers had. In this case, the red-breasted has it. And there's the female. She's kind of tan overall with a little white on the face. Both have bright red eyes. And she's got a very orange bill that's a little lighter orange in color than the males, which is a very Halloween kind of orange. So if you're out looking on the saltwater, look for red-breasted mergansers. And then the merganser that's the most resplendent is the hoodie or the hooded merganser. So the males have that beautiful white band around the back of their head, and like the golden eyes, they can piloerect those feathers so their head looks really big, and like the golden eyes, they cock their head back and sing their love song. That so charms the females of the merganser world. Beautiful kind of tan flanks that have kind of a peachy or salmon color to them, black and white stripes as you go from the wing up to above the wing to right below the neck. Females have kind of a dusty brown tan head that sticks out, some orange on the bill, but neither bill is bright orange like the common merganser or the red-breasted merganser. In fact, the male, of course, it's black. Female has a little orange on the bottom jaw, not so much on the upper. So I've got a video here that shows the serious business it is of courtship amongst these ducks. So you're going to see a bunch of male mergansers courting the female, And if we had sound, you'd hear them doing their love song, but you can just imagine a croaky, guttural sound. So look at these guys. Also notice how blasé the female is. She's like, okay, I've seen this all before. Look at how they can expand those headdresses. Isn't that amazing? And she's just there like, yeah, okay, right. And you'll see if one male gets too close to the female, somebody will jump right in and bump him out of the way before he can try to mate with her. So it's serious business, social hierarchy and courting the females. Oh, look at that. Oh, baby, look at, not to be outdone, the other one's throwing its head back and just amazing. Showing off, kind of doing a little hop out of the water there. Now, when they compress those head feathers, it's not expanded like that at all. It becomes almost a smooth profile like our common merganser mount. So they're really showing their stuff, basically kind of saying, hey, baby. But she's nonplussed. She's just not, yeah. She gets her choice of whatever male she wants. The mergansers, fish-eating specialists that are beautiful, beautiful birds. And you can see a lot of this courtship going on all through the winter. And then in the spring, it's going to be egg-laying time, so beautiful visitors. Most of our mergansers aren't really Arctic. They go up into freshwater streams and breed up in freshwater streams, so they head up out of our lowlands here up into the mountains. So they aren't really an Arctic visitor, but they're so beautiful, you got to include them. Okay. Now, let's talk about another group of birds that are not ducks at all. Grebes, G-R-E-B-E. And we're going to take a look at 3 of them here: the pied-billed grebe, the western grebe, and the horn grebe. Lobe-toed, short-tailed aquatic nesters. Lobe toes. Remember what makes a duck a duck? Webbed feet. Grebes don't have webbed feet. Set that down. I'll just talk loud. Each of their 3 toes has a flap of skin, patagium, that goes up one side of the toe and down the other. The middle toe, separate. Flap of patagium skin up one side, down the other. Same for the third toe, up one side and down the other. Propulsion is the same strategy. When the grebe pushes its foot back, the lobes go like this, perpendicular to the direction of travel, and the resistance shoves the grebe forward. On the recovery stroke, the lobes fold behind the toe. They close the toes, less resistance. So you're not fighting your forward motion. So that's what makes grebes different. The other thing that makes grebes different is that, as we say, they're aquatic nesters. They build floating nests on the water because in grebe anatomy, the legs are so far back on the body, they have a tough time walking on land. They kind of fall on their breast. So if you can't maneuver well and you're on land, you're easy target for any predator. So they tend to stay in the water. In fact, the actual word grebe, when you translate it, it means feet by the buttocks. So feet by the butt. Literally, grebe means your feet are by your rear end. So grebes are aquatic birds. And let's take a look at some of the ones we have around here. Starting with this bird, the pied-billed grebe. If we had sound, you'd hear this guy. He's making kind of a kick, 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 kick. Now notice that bill. The bill changes when its breeding plumage is in this photo. This time of year, the bill is brown. And I have an echo coming through. Isn't that interesting? This is a very short, stocky, chunky bird. And I'll mute that so we're not getting an echo effect. And they have a very interesting courtship call in the spring. It sounds kind of monkey-like. You hear this, oh, oh, oh. a descending call like that. That's their courtship call. And it's like, what in the world is that? Is there a lemur up in the tree? No, it's the grebe. But the bill changes. The plumage doesn't change. They stay about basically the same kind of tans and browns. It's the bill that changes color. And that's how this bird got its name. Now, I probably have a good educated audience here. Why is this bird named pied-billed? What does pied mean? Yes, it's short for the word piebald, which means two contrasting colors. Historically, from about the 19th and 20th centuries, it's tended to colloquially evolve to mean the two strongly colors are black and white, because in equestrian circles is where the word piebald is used primarily now. And piebald horses are black and white, like a horse that might have a black rump and then white flanks and black ribs and white shoulders, big, blocky black and white. So take a look at this bird's beak. It's white with a big black stripe down it. So that's how it gets its name, because it's too much of a mouthful to say the piebald-billed grebe. So they just say the pied-billed grebe. Now, here's a good trivia for you. What other bird that everyone knows uses a variation of the word piebald in its name? Magpie. How about another one? Magpie's black and white. If you're in California, they have a yellow bill and face, but how about our national symbol? When I give programs for kids, they always say, why do they call it the bald eagle, Mr. Ed? Because it has feathers or it has hair. They'll say it has hair. Well, it's the piebald eagle. White head, black or dark body, white tail. Nobody bothers to say it. They just say the bald eagle. Or if you're a fan of classical music, you might know the famous romantic composer Modest Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain, where the witches are dancing, and it's a, it's a very dramatic piece of music. Well, the bald mountain isn't a mountain without any trees on it. It means a white-capped mountain. So when you hear bald or piebald or pied, it means the coloration, black and white. So the next party you're at, you can use that as a trivia and amaze your friends. Okay, so there's our piebald grebe. They're on fresh and salt water, build floating nests, and the young piebald grebes are beautiful. They've got black and white striped faces with red blotches of skin. They're just the cutest. And they can have 2 to 3, sometimes I've even had 4 clutches during a season. So you can have a piebald grebe that has a clutch in May to June, and then you might see another clutch in late July, and I've seen them in mid-September with a clutch, so they can have multiple clutches. All right. The western grebe. There, take a look there. You can see the lobes on the toes. This is a big grebe, and this is their courtship dance. I wish we could hear David Attenborough. Maybe I don't know. Look at the feathers erected there. This is absolutely exquisite. Isn't that just amazing? If you ever get a chance to see this, the courtship dance, now we'll loop this again because some of you good birders out there may notice they've spliced this video. There's 2 different grebes. When you have the grebe that has the eye surrounded by white, that's a Clark's grebe. Later on, you're going to see the eye surrounded by black. That's the western grebe. Plus, it's just great to watch this. It's called the rushing ceremony, the rushing display. There's the western grebe. You can see the eyes surrounded by dark feathers. So these grebes like deeper water, so you won't find them too often in shallow ponds, but they'll be out in the salt water and deeper water. They're not really an Arctic visitor. They tend to breed by heading east. They fly over the Cascades, and they breed in freshwater ponds that are out in the Columbia River basalt flows, ancient lakes, Frenchman's Coulee, Crab Creek, all those areas where there's freshwater lakes there. They build floating nests out in that area, and then come over the Cascades to overwinter with us, because the climate is so much more benign here than it is there. All right, continuing on. This is a horned grebe, a much smaller grebe. In fact, it's, not much larger than a pied-billed grebe. And in its winter plumage, it's got kind of white on the throat and the face and the ventral side, the body. The dark is kind of a brownish color, red eye, a diver, of course. And remember when I said there's a reason for everything? The coloration is camouflage. Now, if you're a predator coming up from below, like an otter, or sometimes even largemouth bass try to get these birds, and you look up at the surface of the water, it's going to look light colored. So if you're a bird, you want to be light on your ventral or underside. If you're a predator coming from above, you're looking down at the water, it's going to look dark. So you want your back to be dark colored. So the colors aren't random. It's a camouflage for survival. So these horned grebes in the winter plumage, they're nice birds, kind of the red eyes, kind of cool, paddling along with those lobed toes. But if you can catch them in mid to late March or early April before they fly north, because these are Arctic visitors, these birds look like this. And look at him erect the feathers around his face, that piloerecting, and the horns are those golden feathers that shoot out from behind its eye. And the body's that beautiful orangey color. This is the same grebe. So late spring, I'm always trying, they tend to head north early, so if you can catch them when they're molting into their breeding plumage, but before they've headed north, it is a sight worth seeing. You can see how they can expand those feathers. Very chicken-like in its movements there. The horned grebe, quite a resplendent bird. Kind of monochrome in the winter, but boy, in spring, they get their flamboyance on. Oh. Now, a couple more ducks. The ringneck duck, which I have here, and this picture shows the ring around its neck. If you've been out looking at ducks, you know that the ring on a ringneck duck is very challenging to see unless they extend their neck and the light is hitting it just so. I think this bird should be called, the decorative billed duck, because the bill is exquisite. It's a beautiful blue-gray with a white border like it was painted with a paintbrush where the bill goes to the face. It's got another broad white stripe near the tip and a black nail. And the field marking for males, they have this what we call a spur, a white point that comes right up where their shoulder, their armpit is. The females don't have quite as beautiful a bill, but it's still pretty nice. It's blue-gray with a little white and then the black at the tip, a white eye ring, and then they've got kind of a buff patch right in front of the bill. So let's take a look at some video of these ducks. There's the ring there. I highlighted it. Let's take a look at them. You can see that white spur. It's very pointy, and look at that bill. Just exquisite. Why name a bird for a field marking that you can barely see? Same thing with the red-bellied woodpecker. You rarely see the red feathers in the belly. Or how about the orange? There's the female. See that buffy patch in front of the bill and the white eye ring? Beautiful mahogany breast on the females. Orange-crowned warblers. One time I've seen some orange in the... Why did they get those names? Anybody know? I saw a hand. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Before the invention of optics, how did you study birds? You got a shotgun and shot them, and then you lay them like we have here. And when you have a ringneck duck, I don't know if the lights can hit it right here, but you can see, oh, look at that color. And of course, you can come up afterwards and check it out. Let's name it for that feature. Out in the field, it's not nearly so obvious. Yes? And would the bill also have lost some of the color because of the dead bird? Yeah, this one has been painted to make it a little brighter. Yeah. Maybe, but more likely it's that when you're looking at the red-bellied woodpecker, you're going, oh, look at the red feathers in the white breast. Or, it's when you're examining it, you can see those details. And, there's so many different types of birds that, you name it for something that looks prominent or distinguished about it. So the ringneck duck, I love ringneck ducks. They're just so cool. And they're an Arctic visitor. They breed up in northern British Columbia and even Alaska. And then the bufflehead. And up here I have a male and female mounted bufflehead. The females, I say they have a cold cream smudge. Imagine if you took your finger and dipped it in cold cream and went like this. That's just what that bird looks like. Or maybe if you're a sports fan, instead of the black, they use to keep the glare out of their eyes, but it's white. And you can see that even from a distance. The males have that refracted light that's, not just the mid-range, the greens. It's got magentas and violets. It's amazing. A white band around the back that they can expand, just like the hooded mergansers, and they're white at the waterline. But you'll never confuse a bufflehead with a goldeneye or especially a big common merganser because these are very small ducks. These ducks and green-winged teals. Teals are our smallest ducks. And this is a true Arctic visitor. This bird breeds way up in Alaska and comes all the way down here. And they're here in huge numbers, but by the end of April, they'll all be gone. So, we've been talking about names of birds. Bufflehead. Well, who came up with that? Well, remember the goldeneye in the genus Bucephalus, head like an ox, named after Alexander the Great's horse? This bird is also in the genus Bucephalus. It's Bucephalus albeola, alba for white, so it's the white bison-headed duck. That name carried over to the common name for it, buffalo head. Again, nobody wants to, it's too many syllables, so bufflehead got shortened to bufflehead. But it's the buffalo-headed duck. Let's take a look at these birds in video. Here's his title. There's two females. And there's the beautiful male. Buffleheads are many people's favorite ducks. They're just so appealing. Twitching its tail there. Paddling along, there's a couple males. Two females, like the old Jan and Dean song, 2 girls for every boy, dun, dun, dun. So, this guy's living large here. Buffleheads, freshwater and saltwater, they like the foods that are in both of those environments, so you'll see them everywhere and enjoy them and marvel at them. You can see the light here's kind of flat, so the head looks almost black. But when you get the light shining on it, that refracted light disperses into a beautiful spectrum of color. All right, we have one more bird to talk about. The American coot. The lobe-toed, chicken-like freshwater bird. Now, coots have lobe toes like grebes, but different type of anatomical lobing. Instead of having this patagium of skin that goes up the entire toe, up one side and down the other, coots have discs on each phalange. So there's lobes here, here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and they're greenish yellow. Now, coots don't have their legs back by their butt like the grebes, so they're very adept on land. But when they're on land, it looks like, to me, like somebody with clown shoes on, because the bird's basically charcoal with a black head, a white bill, but those green-yellow legs, they're just very different. Same function, though. When the bird paddles its foot back, the lobes go out, resistance. On the recovery stroke, they fold behind the toe. So, coots they migrate to British Columbia, but many of them migrate like the grebes. They go over the Cascades, and you'll find them breeding on the Columbia River and freshwater lakes in central and eastern Washington, and clear over to Idaho and Montana and southern Alberta. So let's take a look at a coot up on land, and this particular coot's really got some attitude. You'll see it runs off a female mallard and chases her right off. So take a look at those feet. They even move their head like a chicken. Look at those. They're just like clown shoes. You'll see in a minute here, this coot is, this mallard does something the coot doesn't like, and so it's... Well, have it your way then. Yeah, there's a little dominance going on here. Yeah, again, with those feathers, when you get the light right, they're not just charcoal or black. They refract all kinds of, kind of like magpies and crows and ravens. Now, these birds are in the family of rails, and most rails are shoreline birds that blend in with the vegetation, and most of their bodies elongated on the sides, so if they turn and face you front to back, they seem to shrink like this, which is where the old expression as skinny as a rail came from, because, you know, if a rail stands and faces you, they blend right in with the cattails or hard-stem bulrushes or what am I trying to think of? Narrow-leaf burr reeds, all of the tule-type aquatic plants. But coots are more chunky, and they tend to not be so much in the shoreline. They're out in the open water because everybody likes to eat coot. In fact, even in the Gulf Coast states, people eat coot. You can have coot gumbo. I've been told it's kind of an oily bird. I don't know, it doesn't sound quite appealing to me, but eagles love to eat coots. Largemouth bass will eat coots. Otters will pull coots down from underneath, so everybody likes to eat them. So as a result, their survival strategy, they mass together in what we call rafts, like Huckleberry Finn on his raft. So they get together by the dozens or the hundreds or the thousands. And if an eagle should come out of the air thinking, coots on the menu today, they'll start splashing and spinning around again like the zebras or the shovelers that we saw to create a dizzying visual display that the predator's like, well, who do I go for here? But if, you know, crazy cousin Charlie of the coots gets off by himself, he'll be the one that's targeted. At Seward Park, we have 2 pairs of bald eagles, and one spring I watched the 2 working in tandem because the eagle would swoop down and the coots, of course, splash, and then they dive under. Well, after a couple passes, the male and female decided, let's work together. So the male would fly in. He was a little smaller bodied. Right behind him was the female. Female comes in, coots dive down, she pulls up. The male timed it just right. When the coot pops up, pow. The male snagged him, pulled him up to a Douglas fir by the shore, and suddenly it was raining feathers. So anyway, coots, chickens of the water, they even move their head like chickens. And when you see coots, you'll see the pirate duck, the gadwall. He'll be right in there trying to steal their meal. Coots are mostly vegetarian, so they eat aquatic plants. So they'll pull up plants from submerged plants and chew on them. Well, that is a little bit of an overview of some of our birds we have here. Here's our western grebes moving by. Thank you very much. I hope this was entertaining and informative and gives you a little greater appreciation for all these beautiful Arctic visitors that come down and brighten the big dark days that we have here in November, December, January with their colors and their behaviors and just the beauty of them. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. And I'm happy to entertain some question and answers. So if you have something, if I can't answer it, I'll do my best. Here, yeah, take this.
Okay. Can you hear me? My question is, going back to the mallards and scooping up the acorns, what do they do with them after they've gotten this huge crop full?
So what do they do with that? Well, acorns are pretty solid, but you know what? Mallards have a very powerful gizzard. A gizzard is a sac-like pouch that's surrounded by muscles that contract like a trash compactor, and they can actually crack open the acorns and then pull out the edible part, the meat of it. And then, when I lead owl prowls, we talk about owls expel pellets because they can't digest bones or fur or feathers or tooth enamel if they ate a rodent, and you don't want sharp bones going through the coils of your intestine, or you're going to have a perforation, and then it's owl heaven for the owl. Or if it was you and I, we'd be at, a hospital. So they have to send it back up the way it came. Well, owls aren't the only creatures that expel pellets. So when the mallards eat a lot of those acorns, they will expel the husks of the acorns, spit them out like a pellet. Other raptors sometimes will do pellets, like eagles or hawks or falcons. They tend to pick their food into smaller chunks where owls swallow it whole. Also, I didn't mention grebes, a unique kind of weird behavior of grebes. They eat their own feathers. And they'll feed their young feathers. And it's thought that it creates kind of a plug that helps keep harmful materials from going down into their digestive tract, and then they will expel periodically pellets of feathers. So some unusual behavior, and that's the conjecture from us humans is why in the world would they pull their own feathers out and feed them to their kids and eat their own feathers themselves? And it's thought that it forms a plug that helps protect their systems from harmful, poisonous products. So anyway, they actually crush them in their gizzard.
Just testing this microphone. Can everybody hear? Does this work? Okay. Any other questions?
I couldn't have been that thorough.
Very thorough.
How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Well, all right, well, I will hang around up here. There's probably, we do have one back there. Go ahead.
Do you know why some birds have red eyes?
See my red eye, red-eyed vireo. Birds have different color irises. I don't know the answer to that. I'm afraid I don't know. Some owls have yellow eyes. Some owls have dark eyes. I don't know. Does anyone here? We all can share our knowledge. If anybody knows the color of the iris and does that. In nature, there's a reason for everything, so there must be some reason. That's one I don't know.
Hey, Susan, I'm here behind you. I have no idea why they have red eyes, but I've always thought of that from the wood duck to the loon to the grebes. I mean, it's all over to, I think, an osprey might even have a red eye too. So it just from all sorts. Yeah, I'm also curious.
Spotted towhee, red eyes.
We're a room full of bird experts and nobody knows? Jim?
I don't think anybody.
I saw a video on owls and the explanation for different colored irises. Barred owls have dark eyes. Great horns have yellow eyes, and then the long-eared owl has orange eyes. Some are nocturnal, some are diurnal, and I can't pronounce the other ones, but some they hunt in dusk and dawn,
yeah.
And then some just at night, and it's because of their different colored eyes that they do that. I don't Yep.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
crepuscular is the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
Crepuscular is Latin for
Crepuscular.
twilight, and it's for birds like owls that are active at dusk and dawn, but they're not strictly nocturnal because they take kind of a nighttime version of a siesta. After they've had a meal or two, they'll, sleep for a couple hours, maybe even 3 hours, and then they'll be active again feeding until the sun comes up. The thing is, though, among crepuscular owls, you've got a variety of different color irises. As you mentioned, great horned owls, yellow. Barred owls, dark. Barn owls, dark. Pygmy owls, yellow. And they're all crepuscular, so I don't know. That's one I don't know.
A quick Google search says it can come from a variety of reasons, but it can be visible blood vessels close to the eye. And some birds, some pigments can come from diet, and also it aids in different kinds of vision, including low light vision. The color of the eye can reflect the unwanted colors that they would otherwise not want. So, anyway.
Well, thank you. Yay, all right.
Interesting.
Normally, you'd have to go to a library and research it. Now it's all on. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's one I didn't know. Well, now we're all a little bit smarter. Thank you.
Smarter every day. All right, any other questions that anybody has? All right, let's give another round of applause to Ed Dominguez.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you've had as good a time as I've had presenting for you. This was great. Thank you. And I'll hang around for a bit, or you probably have more meeting to do or what, but I can hang around and take a look at our mounted birds, and I can answer questions.
I would like to remind everybody that if you'd like to learn more about all this kind of stuff, we always have our bird class, which the wait list is filling up. So remember to get on that wait list.